Hi everyone, I'm Coach Cindy from All Training, and I'm here with Dr. Tyler Eidt, and he is from Now and Zen Chiropractic. And you might be wondering, well, why the heck do I have a chiropractic in this group, which is about getting women to feel healthy and strong at 40 plus? But that's exactly why he's here, and we're going to make all the connections for you throughout. But I think that this is an important conversation because when we think about fitness or health or weight, whatever it is, we have to also think about who else do I need on my team to support my wellness journey, so that I get one, the best results, two, that I stick to the long game. It's not a short, and then I'm avoiding pain as well, and I'm doing it in the best way possible. So that's why we have Tyler on. So thanks, Tyler, for joining us.
Thank you, Cindy. Thanks for inviting me to be part of the crew.
I told him he couldn't be part of the group because he's not 40 plus and he's not a woman in perimenopause. But this is the closest thing we could get. Okay, so for your now from Now and Zen Chiropractic.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your business Now and Then, where it operates,
Yep.
and
Yep.
kind of your model.
Okay. A little bit of origin story. So I am a third generation chiropractor. I've been in practice for almost 30 years, next month, I guess. And I've got two practices. I'm in London, where I've been primarily over the number of years I've been practicing, but also in Strathroy and caring for folks there. Um, I've been doing two different types of techniques over time. Originally, when I first got out of school, because also this is why I was brought up, was through the more traditional manual adjustment type of care called diversified care, and enjoyed doing that for about a decade. And then the past couple of decades, I've been doing this newer approach called network spinal analysis, and been offering that to my clients at both locations in London and Strathroy. So yeah, that's what I do.
It's what I do.
What
Okay.
I do.
So most people, I believe, would think like a chiropractor is a chiropractor, a massage therapist is a massage therapist.
Mhm.
But just like lawyers have real estate law, you have tax law, you have family law, you have criminal law. There are different types of chiropractic care, which you kind of just started to explore, to kind of talk about.
Yeah.
So kind of explain what the different types of chiropractic care and kind of who's suitable for what and the kind of care that you provide.
Okay.
A little bit more of that.
So yeah, I think when people think of chiropractic, they usually think of one thing, the snap, crackle, pop stuff. And that is, there's probably a very good chance that 80 to 90% of the time when you see a chiropractor, you will get a manual adjustment. And there's a bunch of different techniques, but you can really categorize chiropractic care into two different uh, containers, if you will. So there is segmental care, which is you got neck pain, we'll adjust your neck. You got back pain, we'll adjust your back. But then there is also tonal, or what we call holistic chiropractic care. And with that comes the understanding that maybe where the site of pain isn't really the site of the primary cause of the pain. So if the cause of the pain, let's say, is due to pelvic rotation, and yet you have neck discomfort as a secondary issue, if all we're doing is adjusting the neck, we're never actually going to get there in properly helping you because we're not addressing the primary cause. So I believe there's a value to both. It really depends what the goal is, right? But the care that I do primarily is a holistic approach in which we are looking to the entire body as opposed to only where the pain is.
Mhm.
Because the pain is usually just the alarm clock going off in the body.
Yeah, and I like that too because when I'm looking at progress photos for the clients that I coach,
Mhm.
sometimes it's like, oh, I'm constantly getting neck tension and migraines or whatever, and I'm looking at their photos and I'm like, but your hips are like this. And so it's like, I don't think that I think that's like the referral, right? But it's not the root cause. Have you ever had somebody look at your hips and they're like, no, because it's always my neck, it's always my shoulders. So I love that you're just saying like, hey, it's like this different type of care looks at kind of where the root is because it might not be here, even though that's what you want fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. The leg bone's connected to the hip bone
Yeah.
and all the way up, right? It's all connected. And that's the way the nervous system works. Um, sometimes it can go as far back as birth, if most people know how traumatic the birthing process can be. And both of my children were born using forceps. And to witness that both as a father and a chiropractor, a lot of twisting, turning, and pulling going on. And so from day one, possibly things out of alignment up here. And in many cases, it's never addressed or looked at after they're born. And so as that child develops, they may develop things like mid back issues or lower back issues from something that stem back to their date of birth because their body adapts to that biomechanical error that occurred, and then the effect on the nervous system because there's a lot of information going from here through this juncture down to the rest of the body. And this is choked off. It's kind of like a kink in the water hose. You're not going to get the proper flow down to the rest of the system.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so since we're talking about tension, let's talk about what tension is and why it's not always about foam rolling or stretching it away.
Okay, well, tension is usually as a result of different stressors, right? So there's physical, mental, emotional, chemical stressors that act on our body. And from again, from day one to current. And so our body kind of addresses as best as it can on a superficial level what that stressor is, but then whatever was not properly addressed is actually stored within our body somewhere. Could be our shoulders, could be our hips, could be our spine. And so um, doing certainly doing soft tissue work and stretching and foam rolling is going to help for sure, as far as alleviating some of the discomfort, getting proper circulation. But if nothing changes within the story, within the body, as far as why that tension is there to begin with, then you're going to be recycling back into that same old pattern over and over again. I say to my clients, it's kind of like when kids get braces on their teeth. They get them nice and straight, and then they take the brackets off, but then you have to wear a retainer. And you think, well, why would I have to wear a retainer if the teeth are straight? It's because there's memory in the body, the way things used to be. And so it's going to want to tend to go back to that
Yeah.
path most commonly traveled. And so, yeah, what we're trying to do, particularly within the care that I do, is address these tension patterns that are perpetuating through the system.
Yeah. And I think when you relate tension into like your weight loss or your fitness or health journey, it's connected in the sense of like if you've got a lot of the story of your body is one of a hyper sense of tension, then it's the reason, could it be the reason why pain always returns? Could it always be the reason why you struggle to do the things that you need to do in terms of nutrition and exercise, stress, and sleep because the body is holding on to all of that memory or that old story, like you like I like the way you put it there. So it's again, it's like kind of because my clients are used to it, like you return back to the old habits because it's familiar, it's what, and so and sometimes when even I don't know if you've noticed, but or clients that are listening to this, when you get an adjustment, it's like, oh, my body feels really sore. And it's
Mhm.
like you have to really wonder, is like it's the body kind of trying to struggle to get back to where it wants to be, but because you haven't spent enough time here as well. So I was like relating it back in the sense of like, okay, well, if you have nervous energy tension,
Mhm.
it's not just about like let's stretch it out. It's
Yeah.
also about like, hey, we got to get to the root of that tension and what's the care look like for that so that I have an easier time doing all of these other things.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to touch briefly on maybe initial increase in discomfort, whether it's traditional care or even the care that I do as gentle as it is, kind of like starting a workout program. That doesn't always feel amazing as soon as you
No.
start, right? So it's the body assimilating those changes, recalibrating, and but then you're better for it on the other side of that, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, this is what I tell all my clients. You may feel initially a little worse, only because your system is awakening to itself.
Yeah.
Because what we're doing is we're kind of shining a spotlight on the tension that's being held in the body, and that doesn't always feel amazing. But now that your body can find what's going on, it's now in a position to fix it.
Yeah.
You're going to feel the need to stretch and move and breathe differently to process out that memory within the system.
Yeah. And just think about when you have tension too, like what does that do to your digestive system? What does that do to your immune system, right? So all it's not just tension, you think tension in the muscle, you also have to think like how it impacts these other kind of systems in the body. And like digestion has a huge role in weight loss, for example.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nervous system, like the brain, has a direct connection to every cell in the body. And so if there's interference anywhere along that chain, from the top to the bottom, will influence the quality of the function of wherever that goes to. I tell my folks when they first come in, we're not really back doctors, contrary to what people believe. We're actually more like the body's electrician. Let's pretend like your body's a house. Your spine is like the circuit breaker in the basement.
Hmm.
And what chiropractors, traditional or otherwise, typically will do is go to the circuit breaker, see where the switch is off, flip the switch back on again, which is fine because you're reestablishing that loop of communication with an adjustment or other techniques. But particularly as it pertains to the technique that I do, I'm addressing why did that
Breaker go off.
switch go off to begin with? Because if you don't address the load on the system, it's just going to continue to want to go back out again.
Yeah, it's a similar to how we approach weight loss, right? It's like, why do your bad habits return? Well, you're not addressing the root cause, right? So it's
Mhm.
like we're not looking at emotional eating. We're just looking at, I just got to eat better. I just got to eat clean. I just got to cut out snacks. But we have emotional eating that's happening, and we're never addressing kind of that thing as well. So when I'm
Right.
looking at people's progress photos, right? So because we do weight measurements and photos, I do see posture. So
Yeah.
common posture things are like one, I see like the mid back kind of sway or and so it's generally like tight hips or it's like pelvic floor or it's weak core, but they're getting back pain and you can see their posture. And then I see women who like, work at their desks or heavy chested that have their shoulders kind of rolling
Mhm.
forward. Or it's like today's client was like, she definitely pronates her feet this way. And so, you have to think about all of these things in terms of like, I always use the example of like, if your foundation was completely destroyed or it was cracked or whatever, you wouldn't be looking at curtain dressings and,
No.
and blinds and stuff like that or paint color, right? And so I always think well, we got to address the foundation because now if you're going to walk more, you're going to work out more, or you're going to lift heavier, you're going to get on your Peloton or whatever, we got to make sure that the foundation is working well. And often when I pull up the pictures, people are like, yeah, I've never noticed that. I never looked at it that way. And I was like, well, yeah. So can you just talk a little bit about posture being a symptom, kind of not the root cause, and like about imbalance and that sort of thing?
For sure. So yeah, posture is more of an external representation of what's going on internally, usually. As you were saying, as far as someone who's working at a desk, or we got these things, right? So
Yeah.
what do we do in a better part of the day? This has become part of our society. And so with a head forward posture, you're going to get stress and tension load on the upper mid back. Um, So there's different parts to it. There's the underlying foundation, but then there's also building around that because you're aware of agonist versus antagonist muscles. Like people are so focused on working their abs, but you got to work the erectors as well in the back or biceps and triceps.
Glutes. Glutes.
Right. Glutes, right? So yeah, posture is, I find that when we address the nervous system and the tension patterns that are associated with that, that posture tends to improve because instead of feeling like you should sit back with your shoulders back and this sort of thing, kind of like a militant way of sitting like our parents told us to do at the dinner table, um, that actually feels abnormal not to sit up straight because for a lot of people, the default is this,
Mhm.
right? So as we proceed through the care, we have a new set point, which is more ear over shoulders, over hips, over knees, over ankles.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is like just a pause there. That's how we
yeah,
teach to lift weights, right? Is like, if you're doing an overhead press, your strongest point is if the shoulder is over top of the joint, right? So you're not pressing in front or whatever. And it's the same thing. Like you always want all the joints kind of stacked. That's when you're the strongest.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So I think there's the nervous system component, which affects the tension within affecting your posture. There is the joints as well, like the pelvis. If the pelvis is off, the foundation on which the back is sitting is going to be offset. And then you get things like scoliosis, like lateral deviation in the spine. Um, and then you got to build around that. You have to make sure that there's stability and strength once that is even. And so that's where you would definitely come in.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's just a couple of things that I want to side note on that one off is one, most people think like when their core isn't strong, they just need more core exercises, but we're not also thinking about the back as part of that. We're not
Right.
thinking about breathing and posture as part of that as well.
Mhm.
So we just think I just need to do more abs, more planks or whatever, but we're missing the entire core system. We just think it's this, but it's like the whole barrel.
Multifaceted, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other thing, one that comes up a lot is a woman who crosses her ankles, a woman who crosses her legs when she sits, or a woman
Yes.
who sits sideways on the couch, always on the same
Mhm.
side, always sleeps side. So that's a common one that comes up. So they're constantly complaining and say, my right hip really hurts or whatever.
Mhm.
And you can see that the pelvis is like this, and then you
Yep.
start, oh, do you sit like this? Do you do this? And then it's like, yes, 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 yes. Can you
Mhm.
just talk about like when you constantly do that kind of same repetitive motion, like you think, and then sometimes what happens, it's like, oh, I went to the gym, and the gym, like that's where the pain started, but it really
Mhm.
started somewhere else because you have this pattern there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, it's tough because people develop these habits, right? Um, like I know for me, I've got deviated septum, so I have to sleep on my right side to breathe properly.
Mhm.
So for some people, it could be, you know, they have to sleep facing a different way for whatever reason because the air's blowing on them or from their bedroom or whatever the case may be. And so it's hard to change some of those habits to mix it up a little bit. But if you're able to try to be aware in how you do what you do on a daily basis, let's say for those who are say like bank tellers, maybe instead of just standing straight, sometimes have those support pads beneath the feet just
Mhm.
to kind of add some cushion, or even some people put a little step. So they put their foot up just even like half a foot just to take some pressure off and then alternate between each side. Or with kids, don't carry that backpack on the one shoulder. It's got to be both sides. Or for new moms carrying their little ones, always on the one shoulder, or new dads too, right? That you got to, I know it feels awkward, but trying to switch it up a little bit makes the biggest part of difference for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Now, one of the things you do, so when you go to see Dr. Tyler, is one of the things you do is your breath. You watch the breath. You watch
Yes.
the breath. So, can you just talk about the connection to the breath, to like,
Mhm.
the tension, the posture, the nervous system?
Yeah. So over time, as tension kind of gets somewhat entrenched into the body through the nervous system, the joints and the tissues, we become shallow breathers. So when people usually first come in to see me and they're laying face down and I'm looking at their breath, you almost can't tell that they're breathing. You almost have to do the mirror test to make sure there's actually air going in and out
Hmm.
because it's so locked in that there is no expansion occurring. So as I proceed through the care, um, I'm watching to see how are we how are we helping unwind some of that tension, and I'll find that we develop somewhat of a respiratory wave through the spine. We start with some movement in the lower back, so that tension drops away, and then it proceeds up through the upper mid back into the neck. So someone who's been doing it for a period of time will notice that their entire back is going up and down as they're breathing. And it lets me know we're on the right track.
Hmm.
We don't think of these things. We don't think of conscious breath through the day usually, unless we're doing mindfulness or meditation, in which we feel our lungs fill and feel that rib cage really open up, and maybe even feel the joints of our spine separating a little bit as that breath comes in. Usually, there's so much tension through there, you wouldn't feel any of that occurring. So, definitely trying to get to that root cause of what is causing that tension, helping release it, and then that will improve that expansion of the rib cage, but also really vital capacity as far as your ability to bring more air in through activity.
Yeah, and that's like again something that we do when we're in the gym as well is like I'll catch w women lifting and not holding their breath, and you have to think
Mhm.
about how much tension that creates, and when you have that much tension because you're not holding your breath, how much you just can't get stronger. You can't get stronger, right? So
Right.
it's like for women who have been lifting and they're like, why can't I get stronger? It's like, well, have you just dialed it back to the basics of do you have your breathing down pat
Yep.
when you're going through the lifting as well? And oftentimes when I have new people come into the gym or the space, it's they're breathing incorrectly. They're breathing at the wrong part of the exercise where they actually need it the most.
Yep.
And I think with women, we spend a lot of time talking about don't do deep breaths because we don't want our bellies to get bigger. And so
Mhm.
we become chest breathers up here because it's
Okay.
about like I just need my belly, but really it's like we do need the air to get down to like our pelvic floor and into our belly, and that's where you're going to start to get stronger. And if you're particularly if you're somebody who's watching who wants to get stronger, when you lift weights, and even with me when I first started running, like I could not run. I would cramp up and so
Mhm.
much. And then back then there was the Lotus Center in London, and I went
Yes.
did a meditation workshop there, and they just taught you how to really like get all of the air out of your lungs. And when I brought that practice into running, it was like no more cramps, and
Switched.
I could
Yeah.
figure it out. Yeah. So I
Awesome.
think like you're talking about it in terms of tension, yes, but like even just like in practical terms, in terms of how I'm seeing it, I'm seeing it in terms of like when people are lifting, or even just my own personal story in terms of running.
Well, I'm sure people are doing their repetitions and they're, and so for some people, it's just like
Yeah.
trying to squeeze it out and not breathing, right?
Yeah.
Through that movement, which is, I believe, key
Yes.
through the whole range.
Yeah.
So I would say probably a lot of people I see in the gym myself are not breathing the way that they should be.
Yeah. And even just also breathing into the pelvic floor. So if you're the kind of woman who, maybe it pees a little bit when you're jumping, sneezing, laughing, or whatever, or lifting weights, it's like
Mhm.
that's going to help you with your pelvic floor too, is if you start breathing less up here and more down into the pelvic floor as well.
Yes.
So, because a lot of the women that are in this group are for perimenopause or menopausal, we're also talking about inflammation.
Mm.
So how is inflammation all connected to nervous system, tension, like all of that?
That's pretty broad. That's pretty
Yeah. No.
inflammation. Yeah, that's like the buzzword these days, right?
Yeah.
Particularly with I was talking about Gary Brecka and the Ultimate Human Podcast, and one of the main topics on that podcast is inflammation through regenerative medicine. How can we find ways to remove inflammation through the body? And yeah, if there's nerve interference, there's likely going to be inflammation wherever that traces to. I'm not saying it's the answer, but it's a pretty important piece. Like
Yeah.
the nervous system is the master system to the entire body. So we want to make sure there's no interference, and as a result, hopefully no inflammation. But then it's also, how much water are you drinking?
Yeah.
What
Nutrition,
is, what's your diet? Um,
stress, sleep.
environment, right? Like what are you taking in your system? Yeah, there's a lot to that for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do my little part, just make sure that the nervous system is clear and
Yeah.
help with that.
But it integrates well into women who are looking like I have high levels of inflammation or even water retention around my joints and stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, what are we doing on this side of things? And what are we doing in terms of nutrition, exercise, stress, sleep, environment, all, hydration, all of those things so that we
Mhm.
can help reduce the inflammation. Because I think that, it is a buzzword. And so it's like the next thing that's going to come out is just some sort of supplement that's going to help you with it. And it's really like, you don't need to go there. You need to like
Yeah.
integrate this. And I know it feels harder than taking a supplement, but really that's where you're going to get the results.
Start with the basics, right?
Yeah.
Basics for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess like, okay, so you like what would maintenance look like? Like for somebody to like get rid of like the a posture, the tension, the nervous system, what does maintenance look like?
Depends on the individual.
Yeah.
It really does. There's really no cookie cutter approach to this. I tell folks once they get to maintenance care, some people require weekly visits because they are day traders, they are manual laborers, they have high stress. So that weekly visit just to kind of keep their system on par is what's required. But then on the other end of the spectrum, I've got some retirees that I'll see in the fall just before they head down to Florida to their condo. And then I see them when they get back in the spring, maybe a couple times in between golf rounds,
Yeah.
and then go back down. And then there's everybody in between. So what I try to do is in the first part of care, we get the intensive part of the care into the system, but then look at what are the goals, what's the lifestyle, what would fit best for that person, and they'll know pretty quickly what is it that's going to work for them if maintenance is a choice that they want to make. I think probably a lot of your people are more proactive in their own health, and so would probably be more apt to go into prevention and maintenance as opposed to, well, doc, the pain's gone, so I'll see you when the pain comes back again. There are those for sure, and that's a use of chiropractic care. It's not probably the best use of chiropractic care, but it's a use. So yeah, maintenance varies
Yeah.
individual to individual for sure.
Yeah. Well, today's kind of talk was just to kind of give the women that are listening a different perspective on things, or maybe the missing link that they have, because oftentimes when we approach health, fitness, or wellness, it's like we think about it's an I team. It's only me on this, and it feels really lone and really overwhelmed, and you get really frustrated easily. But really, you need like a wraparound approach. You really need other care professionals that are part of your team. And chiro is one, massage is another, osteopath, maybe you have a naturopath, maybe you have a family doctor, maybe you're on hormone therapy. It's a variety of different things that are kind of helping you. And I always like to think about it like a bucket, and you have leaks in the bucket. It's like all these people kind of help you fill up a leak. And when you don't have enough people around you or enough of the, I guess, services or care around you, you're constantly having a leak. And then that's what leads to more frustration. But you have other people who have different skills that can help you fill kind of those leaks in the bucket.
Absolutely. I tell my folks that I would never put all your apples in this particular basket, right? That usually it is maybe two or three different things that will make the package for that individual. Could be personal training, could be personal training, yoga, and chiropractic. It could be meditation,
Yeah.
implementation. And so people will ask, like, what is the vitamin that I need to take? Right. Well, really, it's probably a multivitamin, and it's not one vitamin within that multi. It's probably a few different things within that
Yeah.
multivitamin, having like a synergistic effect for that person and their health. And
Yeah.
so I think the same thing when it comes to different modalities, for sure. I've
Yeah.
had,
Because the key is the long game, right? It's not
yeah,
just doing the diet for 30 days or 6 weeks in losing the weight. It's like you want to be healthy as long as you can. Longevity is the key, or
absolutely.
like Peter Attia says, health span, right? Uh,
Yep.
and so we're looking at that, right? How do we keep you in the game long enough, and but also enjoying the game at the same time?
Yep.
Yeah. Where can people find you?
They can find me at currently my Facebook page. I'm going to get a website one of these days. It's going to happen. But my Facebook page is facebook.com/Strathroy Chiropractor. And I think my Instagram handle, I should know this, but pretty sure it's at Now Zen Chiropractic or
Yeah,
Now
and
Zen Chiro. One of the two. I
Tyler.
know, shame on me. I should know these things.
I'm going to drop them in the comments after this video too, in case you want to, one, give them a follow, or two, you're from the London, Strathroy kind of area. You do see people outside of Strathroy, like Glencoe and stuff like that too. So if
So,
if you do want to get a hold of Tyler, then you can do so as well. All right. Thanks
thanks,
so much,
Cindy.
Tyler.